Welcome back to another edition of Intended Consequences, the official podcast of the Strategy Corp Institute of Public Policy and Economy. I'm your host, Sebastian Lebrec. Today, we're talking about the foundation of economic development, entrepreneurship. You know, we often talk about people starting businesses and eventually growing them, but we don't often talk about what happens when entrepreneurs want to retire. My family actually went through this. Growing up, my mother owned a travel agency in Quebec. At some point, she wanted to retire, so she had a choice to make, selling the business or closing it. She ended up closing it because the pool of potential buyers was really small. If you think about your own neighborhood, you might have seen some businesses closing or changing hands because the owner retired. The Business Development Bank of Canada, or BDC, published a report on this topic earlier this year, and it does a great job explaining the dynamics at play and how retiring entrepreneurs can sell their businesses. I invited Pierre Cléroux, Vice President, Research and Chief Economist at BDC, to join the show today to deep dive into the report. Mr. Cléroux has been the Chief Economist at BDC since 2012, so he has a wealth of knowledge on the state of entrepreneurship in Canada. Thank you so much for being here, Pierre.
My pleasure.
Okay, so the report highlights that thousands of Canadian entrepreneurs are over the age of 50, and many are starting to think about retirement like my mom did a few years ago. Could you give us a sense of the magnitude of what might be coming? What does the data show?
There's an aging population in Canada. It's also true for entrepreneurs. There's more than 100,000 Canadian entrepreneurs who are over 65 today. So we know that in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of these entrepreneurs are going to sell their business. It's represent about 140,000 businesses that are going to change hands in the next 5 years. So this is a unique situation. There was always business transition in the past, but never at this magnitude.
We're going to set the stage a little bit here for our discussion. What's the biggest risk if Canada does not manage this historical transfer of companies and economic value well?
I think the first one is a risk for the entrepreneur because often for the entrepreneur, this is their pension retirement fund. So selling their business, it's important for the next step in their life. So the risk is actually an important risk for them. They have to be well prepared. The risk for the economy, what we are seeing now, a lot of business are finding entrepreneurs to buy them. In some cases, it's not the case, but in most cases, it's businesses are finding another business to make the acquisition. So I don't see that as a major risk for the economy. I guess the biggest risk is the fact that some businesses could be sold to foreign buyers, and we could lose, part of the economic activities. We know Canada is a very open economy, so there's always, we have good businesses. So that's probably the biggest risk that we see.
It's interesting because I suppose in a way it kind of ties back to the conversation about keeping Canadian IP in Canada as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the risk that we see. Typically, Canadians are quite dynamic and they buy more businesses from outside the country than the opposite. But because we have so many businesses in transition now, that there's a risk that we see more foreign buyers.
So as I mentioned, if a business owner wants to retire, it's either you sell or you shut down. Closure is pretty straightforward for the most part, but selling a business can be a pretty complicated process. In your opinion, how prepared are Canadian entrepreneurs in terms of planning ahead for their business exit?
Not enough. What we see is businesses, sometimes they make a decision very rapidly and they don't take the time to prepare their business well enough. The risk is for them. If you don't take the time, if you're not well prepared, you will leave money on the table. Selling a business, it's a complex transaction. There's a fiscal implication. So you need to prepare at least, some say 2 years in advance to make sure that you maximize the value of your business when you sell it, which is important. Like I said, a lot of owners, they sell the business and they retired. So they have to maximize, or they should maximize the value of their business. So the risk is really selling without maximizing the value that you get.
2 years. That's really surprising. I never thought of it this way.
Well, there's a lot of fiscal implications. So if you want to make it the right way, it takes some time.
So in order to sell a business, you need a suitable buyer. And as I mentioned, sometimes it's hard to find. So, who are the most likely buyers for the businesses that are about to put up the for sale sign in Canada?
Well, there's some entrepreneurs who are really looking to grow their business, and one way to grow a business is by making acquisition. So that's the typical, the buyers, the one who are they want to grow their business more than others. There's also opportunities. Sometimes, a business will make an acquisition because they want to keep a supplier, or they want to grow in another region or another sector. So those are businesses who are looking to expand and sometimes to expand into a new market.
It's interesting because I noticed you didn't mention second generation. Sometimes we hear about the kids of the entrepreneur buying the company.
Oh, definitely. And it's just about 25% of transaction are with the family. Another 25% is what we call management buyout. So it's the management. And BDC do a lot of transaction with management. So they help the management to buy the owner. So that's represent about 50% of all transaction. Another 25% is sold to somebody that you didn't know, some another entrepreneurs, and 25% of businesses that are just closing down, just like your mother.
I was really interested in what the report said because the report basically highlighted that we should not think that business acquisition is only a large corporation thing. So, to what extent are smaller companies actually looking to acquire other firms in Canada?
Well, it's quite common because one way to grow your business is by acquisition. So if you're small and you believe that you want to grow your business, a quick way to do it it's by acquisition. I tell you in the report we talk about specific some example. We give some example of real businesses, and this businesses was in the software industry, IT services. They had only 20 employees, but they wanted to grow. So they make an acquisition of another business in another region with 12 employees. So you see, in that context, the idea was to get bigger, to save, to put some resources in common, or another way to say it, to have some economy of scales. So instead of having two accounting system, they have only one. So they save some money. They were able to expand to another market. Also, this new acquisition, this firm was specialized in manufacturing sector, which they were not. So that was a way to go to acquire some resources, some experience in a different market. So a small firm can really benefit from making acquisition. So that's why we see a lot of smaller firm making those transactions.
So, when I think of smaller companies, I often assume that they perhaps have less resources to purchase other companies, and corporate loans are not cheap. So, could you speak to the financial dimension of business acquisition?
Well, your CBDC is there to help businesses to grow their business and to develop the Canadian economy. So we have a specialized group who will help to make those transactions because, like you said, maybe it's a bit more risky to make an acquisition, but we take more risk at BDC than the average financial institution. So that's a one way to do that. You're right. There's not a lot of resources around small business, so it's important in terms of making the right transaction to to surround yourself by professional that will help you to do that. So your accountant, maybe a lawyer, people who are they have experience in making acquisition. So a small business can make an acquisition if they are, if they have the right group of people around them.
So I was going to ask you the other side of the coin in terms of are Canadian SMEs ready and prepared to make business acquisitions? You kind of started to answer this question a little bit by hinting at the importance of a team. Is there anything else we should add?
Well, I think they are. In surveys that we do, there's always a good percentage of business who are saying they're looking to make acquisition. Today you need a certain size to be profitable, or to make some more profit. And I think a lot of small business realize that. So if you want to invest in technology, you need a certain size. So making acquisition will help you to continue to grow your business.
And that's a great segue into the next question. The report had a question that I'll ask it to you now. Is it worth for Canadian SMEs to pursue acquisitions? What are some of the benefits and drawbacks?
You see, we did this report with Statistic Canada, and we look at Canadian businesses over the last 10 years. So this is not a survey. This is looking at real Canadian businesses over the last 10 years. We compare the one who made at least one acquisition and the other one who grow organically. And we find that businesses who have been making at least one acquisition, they have been growing faster, and their profit is 4 times the other group after 5 years. So there's real benefits to make acquisition. There's also benefits in terms of exploring other sectors. You can make acquisition of talent. We know that talent is difficult to find these days. So some entrepreneurs will make an acquisition to make sure that they have more workers or more employees with a specific experience, a specific talent. So there's a lot of benefits to make acquisition, and that's the reason why we see that the more dynamic entrepreneurs will make acquisition.
You had something in the report that talked about the importance of corporate culture because obviously, if you acquire another firm, it's a different company, different people. Could you speak to this culture aspect?
Yeah, this is a very important aspect because when you make an acquisition, it's kind of easy to look at the financial statement of the business you want to buy. You can find out what is their clients and how much they have invested, what kind of technology they use. What is not, as clear or as easy to find is what is the culture of the business. And what we find is one of the pitfall is when you have two different very culture between businesses, sometimes there's a shock, and that's you have to make sure you understand when you make an acquisition how you're going to merge the two culture of the business because the idea or the benefits is to make resources together. So if you keep two identities separately, well, you're not maximizing the benefit that you can. So the culture of the business you're acquiring is very important in the success of your acquisition.
So you and I are both economists, so we love to talk about productivity. The report ties business acquisition to potential productivity gains. Could you tell us why?
Well, first of all, when you make an acquisition, you often get bigger. And all the research is showing that you need a certain size to increase your productivity. So, for example, in Canada, another research we did with Statistic Canada, productivity is increasing very rapidly until you reach about 10 million of sales. After that, there's kind of a plateau. So, if you make an acquisition to get closer to the 10 million mark, well, you are really increasing your chance to increase productivity. How you do that? Well, when you make an acquisition, you put resources together. So instead of having two department of finance or two department of HR, well, you put them together. So then you reduce your costs because you have one department now. You can grow in terms of your sector, so you can have access to bigger contracts. So all these benefits of making an acquisition have a positive impact on your productivity. So it's a very, we were talking about the opportunity that right now. This is a unique opportunity in Canada to scale up and to increase business productivity.
I love that we're talking about this because, productivity is a hot topic, but we don't really hear it in the context of M&A and stuff. So that's fascinating. Okay, so our conversation demonstrates that there are several dimensions to consider when it comes to business transfers. As you know, we have many municipal listeners. I have a lot of colleagues in the economic development space, so they would love for me to ask you this question. What should economic development officers be thinking about as this wave of entrepreneurs retiring is about to hit?
I think they are extremely well positioned to act as a network. Especially in a smaller town where if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm thinking about selling, I need a buyer. So These people are very well connected inside their community. So the network part is very important. So when we say to our clients, when you're thinking about selling, talk to the people your accounting, your lawyer, but your economic development officer are a good source. They understand the business in their community. They know a lot of people. So make one of the role I can see is to have kind of a connector between people who want to sell and people who want to buy. Younger entrepreneurs looking to scale up their business, looking for opportunities. So this very important mandate or job is to connect entrepreneurs between each other.
So we talked about the local level with EDOs. Now let's talk about higher level. Let's talk about BDC. Although you are in many local communities, so perhaps that's not the right frame to use here. So you support Canadian entrepreneurs through a variety of solutions. So what are some of the main initiatives of BDC as it pertains to helping entrepreneurs either buy or sell a business?
Well, we see that as a very important mandate for BDC. Our mandate is to help business to grow. It's also we also have a mandate to help the economy to develop. So by helping businesses to make transition, we believe that it's a very important part of what we do. So we do it in different ways. The first one is on the financing side. So we have a specialized group to help businesses to make this transition. So we help the family or the management to buy the business, or we help businesses to make acquisition of another business. We also help our clients to make a transition when they want to exit their business. So on the financing side, that's something we do every day. A large part of our transaction is related to a business transition. We also provide a lot of information on our website about how to prepare your business for transition. We produce a number of insights, like the report that we were making reference to. That's a good example of insights about, is it worth to make a transition, for example. A lot of information on our website to help business to make the right decision. And also we provide advisory services and financing services to help to actually make the transaction.
So as I mentioned, you're a little bit everywhere across Canada. So if I'm an entrepreneur or perhaps even an economic development officer is hearing this podcast, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, the best way is to identify like an office of BDC close by. We have 120 offices across the country. We're present everywhere, not only in the big cities, but also in smaller towns. And so make a contact with your local account manager, and they will provide you all the information you need about how can BDC help you.
That's fantastic. Well, as I mentioned at the top of the show, you have a wealth of economic expertise when it comes to entrepreneurship, and it really came through during our discussion today. I know you and I could keep talking about economics for probably another hour, but I think this is a good place to wrap up the podcast. This is a topic that I really care about, as I mentioned at the top of the show. So thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your insight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Intended Consequences. The views expressed during this podcast are not necessarily the views of Strategy Corp. All rights for this episode are reserved, and the guests on the Intended Consequences podcast might be current or past clients of Strategy Corp. To find out more about the work of the Institute and to subscribe to our newsletter, visit our website at strategycorp.com/institute and make sure to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm Sebastien Lebrec, and I intend to talk to you again next episode.